Very good evening to all pious yogis. This evening, we shall discuss a sutta. The title of the sutta is Ādhipateyyasutta. Ādhipateyya is translated as authorities or governing principles. So in this sutta, the Buddha explains three authorities or three governing principles that keep one's Dharma practice on track. This sutta also includes an important message. So this important message says that there's nowhere to hide from one's unskillful actions of one's evil deeds. Although this sutta was given to the bhikkhus, but it also applies to certain extent to those who practice satipatthana meditation, who follow the path of Dharma. So there are these three authorities. The first is oneself as one's authority. The second, the world as one's authority. The third, the Dharma as one's authority. In this world, we sometimes have to live depending on the authority of others. In other words, someone might have some authority over you, or that person able to give commands or instruction to you to do something, and so on. So sometimes we have to rely on the words of certain person, because he has the authority in that professions or in that field of study, and so on. So here, the Buddha taught us to take oneself as one's authority, the world, the Dharma, as one's authority. In other words, you have the power or the right to do something good for yourself, or to do something beneficial for yourself. So those who renounce the world, they renounce out of faith or saddha. So they should rightly understand the ultimate of renunciation. So they renounce not for the sake of material gains, or for the sake of becoming this and that. Similarly, you follow the path of the Dharma, especially practicing satipatthana meditation diligently, is not for some material gain or for the sake of becoming this and that. So what's the meaning of for the sake of becoming this and that, this or that? So, as you know, sometimes those who follow the teachings of Buddha and do not have the right understanding may performing or doing all kinds of merits for the better rebirth or better future existence, and so on. Similarly, if we practice satipatthana meditation, not for the sake of better rebirth or higher realms of existence, but rather with the thought that I'm immersed in birth, old age, and death. And living in this mundane world, one is also immersed in sorrow, lamentation, pain or dejection and anguish. Or in brief, everyone is immersed in suffering or afflicted by suffering. So if one has rightly understood suffering, one should make an aspiration. Perhaps ending of this entire mass of suffering can be discerned or can be realized. So even you join the retreats, you have practiced to a certain extent detachment. So one has to take the practice seriously. Sometimes some yogis joining retreats at certain places, they do not take the practice seriously. Sometimes they take it as a holiday. So they like to practice in a way of a relax. So similarly, for those who has gone forth, to go forth means to renounce the world, so it's also not proper to seek sensual pleasure. So when we practice detachment, in other words, we have to renounce attachment or enjoyment of the sensual pleasures. So in that way, a yogi or the bhikkhu or anyone who practices the Satipatthana meditation should reflect or think carefully and deeply. So in other words, effort or energy should be aroused in me or without slackening. And the mindfulness will be established without confusion. And my body will be tranquil. Tranquil here means passaddhi, without disturbance. So my mind will be concentrated and one-pointed. So one has to concentrate on this present moment, not thinking about the future, the past, or not even thinking about the next moment. So one should take oneself as one's authority in this way. In other words, you have this authority to do something for yourself. You do not have to rely on the authority of someone in order to do this. So having taken oneself as one's authority, then one abandons the unwholesome and develops the wholesome. One abandons what is blameworthy and develops what is blameless. And one maintains oneself in purity. So this is known as oneself as one's authority. So it's important to take oneself as one's authorities. If one has rightly understood this teaching, then one does not have to rely on others. Others also did not have to always keep an eye on this practitioner or on this yogi. If one doesn't take oneself as one's authority, then one maybe needs to be governed or controlled, regulated by many rules and regulations. So one who takes oneself as one's authority always has the initiative to do better and better. Then, what's the world as one's authority? So during the practice of meditation, or such as mindfulness meditation, sometimes the mind we be carried away by some wrong thoughts. As you know, wrong thoughts are thoughts of sensual pleasure, or thoughts of ill will, or thoughts of harming. Sometimes some yogis enjoys certain kinds of sensual thoughts and just allow the mind to immerse in that sensual thoughts. So that the meditators might be sitting there with the upright postures, look like in samadhi and so on. So that yogi might be thinking, no one knows my mind is thinking about these sensual pleasures or sensual objects. But the Buddha said, in this vast abode of the world, there are ascetic or Brahmins who are endowed with psychic power or clairvoyance or divine eyes. So they also have endowed with the psychic, able to read the mind of others. And they could see things from far away, but they are not themselves seen when they are close. Similarly, there are also some deva endowed with this psychic power, divine eye, or the psychic power, able to know the mind of others. So these ascetic or Brahmins or the deva may come to know about the mind of these bhikkhu or the mind of these meditators. So they would know the yogi or the mind of yogi task, or for example, look at this yogi or look at this monk. His mind is tarnished by unwholesome states. So one should reflect that or think deeply. I should arouse the energy without slackening. I should establish a mindfulness without confusion. My body should be tranquil without disturbance. My mind should be concentrated and one-pointed. So if one doesn't know that the meaning of the world as one authority, then one might have the idea that whatever thoughts arising in my mind, no one will know it. But there are ascetic or Brahmin and Deva who are endowed with psychic power or able to know the mind of others. So it's not good that my mind is endowed with these unwholesome states. So having taken the world as one's authority, then one abandons the unwholesome and develops the wholesome. One abandons what's blameworthy and develops what's blameless. And one maintains oneself in purity. So the world as one's authority. So in other words, one is regulated by this, one is governed by this principle. Then one would put forth effort to purify the mind. So what is the Dharma as one's authority? So as you know, the Dharma is endowed with 6 attributes. So the Dharma is well expanded, direct, visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, and to be personally experienced by the wise. And there are fellow practitioners or the co-meditators who know and see. So as you know, the first attribute Dharma, well expanded, is refer to the mundane Dharma and supra-mundane Dharma. But the next 5 attributes are supra-mundane Dharma. So they are fellow practitioners of mind who know and see. In those they have realized the supra-mundane Dharma. So as a practitioner, the followers of 3%, so it's not proper to be lazy and heedless in this well-expanded Dharma and disciplines. So upon this deep reflection, then one should arouse the effort or viriya in oneself without slackening. The mindfulness should be established without confusion. The body will be tranquil without disturbance. The mind should be concentrated and one-pointed. So by taking this Dharma as one's authority, then one abandons the unwholesome or develops the wholesome. One abandons what's blameworthy and develops what's blameless. One maintains oneself in purity. So only by having these 3 authorities, then one will keep the practice on the path. So earlier, I have said that the important message in this sutta is that there is nowhere to hide from one's unskillful actions or evil deeds. So if one wishes to live a life free from worry and anxiety, or free from suffering, then one should take oneself as an authority. The world, the Dharma is one's authority. So at the end of the sutta, the Buddha said, for one performing an evil deed, there is no place in the world called hidden. It means there is no secret place for one who has done an evil deed. Sometimes someone might think this evil that I had done, no one will know about it. Or someone might think I did it secretly, or no one shall be able to know about it. But the Buddha says, the self within you knows whether is it true or false. Indeed, you, the weakness, despise your good self. So in other words, oneself is one's own weakness of one's own actions. And the Buddha said further, you conceal the evil self existing within yourself. So one thinks that I could hide these evil deeds. So the Buddha said further, the Devas and Tathagatas see the foolish one acting unrighteously in the world. So therefore one should fare mindfully, taking oneself as an authority. So in other words, one should follow the path of spiritual training with mindfulness, or taking oneself as authority. Alert and meditative, taking the world as authority. So one should not have the idea that no one will know my mind, and fare in accordance with the Dharma, or taking the Dharma as authority. So truly exerting oneself, a sage does not decline. That means does not fall back or fall from this path of Dharma. So only by this way of striving, one can conquer the Mara and overcome the end maker. The end maker here means death. So in that way, one shall achieve the final goal. In other words, there's no more birth and death. So one should arouse the effort in order to develop mindfulness. So only through constant and continuous mindfulness, one is able to develop deeper and deeper concentration. So as you know, the concentration that's developed in the practice of a Satipatthana meditation is not as shallow. As you know, it is known as momentary concentration or unification of the mind. In other words, momentary unification of mind. In other words, the mind is concentrated on one phenomenon at each moment. And that phenomenon is subject to instant passing away. Then it's because of passing away of this object, then there's arising of the next object or next phenomenon. Then if the mindfulness is very strong, meditators also realize that the process mindfulness is also arising and passing away almost at the same moment with the phenomenon. So that's why meditators need to develop active mindfulness. In other words, meditators should not exercise or strong control over the process of mindfulness. As you know, mindfulness is also one of the mental factors, cetasika, or in other words, one of the mental processes. It also have three characteristics: anicca, dukkha, anatta. So it's important to realize that the process of mindfulness is arising dependent on an object, or the arising of an object, or arising of a phenomenon. But at the beginning of practice, meditators may not be able to perceive the arising of mindfulness clearly. Sometimes meditators need to put effort to direct the mindfulness or the attention of mind to the basic object sitting meditation or other phenomena. But when meditators keep on practicing, sometimes they can perceive the arising of the awareness or the attention with the object. So sometimes meditators perceive the arising of mindfulness, or the sudden arising of mindfulness with an object. The meditators have to follow the mindfulness as soon as possible. So there's no space or time to think about the object, whether this object is more distinct or less distinct, and so on. It's important to mindful and note the mental state as soon as possible. Sometimes the mind is carried away by certain thoughts or wandering mind. Then suddenly the meditators realize that I should be mindful. So these thoughts, I should be mindful, I should not keep on thinking, is a kind of right thought. So meditators realize that one should come back to meditating instead of thinking. So meditators should mindful of their thoughts as soon as possible. It's because with the arising of this thought, I should be meditating, I should not thinking. Actually, with the arising of these thoughts, the previous thinking, the previous thoughts had disappeared. So meditators should be mindful of the most present mental process, or the most current mental states. And sometimes the mind might be thinking about the experience or judging the practice and so on. So when one is thinking about the experience or reflecting on the experience, at that time the meditators are no longer living at that present moment. So in other words, thinking about experience or conscious about experience, judging the practice is thinking. In general, is thinking. It's not mindfulness anymore. So meditators should be mindful of such mental states as soon as possible. Sometimes the mind will reflect on certain experiences by itself. Then meditators should also be mindful of the reflection of the mind.
Reflect here, Venerable.
Like something like thinking, pondering. So when meditators are mindful of any object, in fact, meditators have to train the mindfulness to pay proper attention to every process of the phenomenon. If meditators are mindful of any phenomenon or any process movements, yet they do not know the process well, then they may not be able to realize their true nature. So it's not only master the skill of mindfulness, the skill of noting. So it is even more important to perceive the actual process of the phenomenon, of the actual process of movements, and so on. So we are paying proper attention. Actually, proper attention here refers to yoniso manasikara. In other words, meditators are mindful of every process of phenomenon or the process movements and realizing their true nature. So in other words, meditators come to realize that the phenomenon or any process movements is not an everlasting process or everlasting phenomenon. Then when there's a yoniso manasikara or proper attention, meditators also realize the relationship of the mental physical phenomena in terms of cause and effect or interconditionality. As you know, ayoniso manasikara or improper attention means taking what's impermanent as permanent, or taking what's suffering as happiness, taking no self or not self as self. So when we develop mindfulness, we also want to develop this proper attention, so that we will direct our view to right views. The view of the worldlings always regards anything that's impermanent as permanent, suffering as happiness, no self as self. But one who practices mindfulness meditation and develop this proper attention, then their view will be turning away from the view of worldly one to the view of the noble one. So that's why meditators need to put forth effort to keep the mindfulness staying with the most distinct process of the object or the phenomenon. So it's not enough to make a mental noting. The most important is to perceive the actual process movements precisely and in details. In order to practice well, to make progress, one should reflect that as long as we are not enlightened, we are immersed in this birth, old age, and death, immersed in this sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and anguish. So in brief, every worldling is immersed in suffering, afflicted by suffering. But there's always the hope to end this entire mass of suffering. So, in other words, one who wish to attain cessation of suffering should take the practice of Satipatthana meditation seriously. So, in other words, one has confidence that oneself is one's own authority. So, one has the power to achieve the aim of this spiritual training. One should take the world as one authority. So one should not have the thought that no one in this world will know my inner world. And taking the Dhammas as one authority, in other words, as a follower of the Triple Gems, as a practicer of the Dhamma, one should not be lazy, heedless. So one should arouse the effort or energy. One should establish a mindfulness without confusion. So one should develop this tranquility in body. So sometimes this tranquility in body refers to the cetasika. So one should develop concentration, develop this one-pointedness of the mind. So with these three authority, then one shall be able to abandon the unwholesome, or develop the wholesome, or one shall be able to abandon what's blameworthy and develop what's blameless, and always maintain oneself in purity. So I wish all meditators be heedful to this teaching, taking oneself, the world, and Dharma as one authority, so that you could achieve the final goal of the spiritual training. That means the freedom of mind, the mind liberated from all kinds of impurities, all kinds of defilements, and live in peace and happiness.
สาธุ สาธุ สาธุ